Добрий ранок, пані та панове. Пані мер, мені дуже приємно повернутися до Львова. I'm also very pleased to be back at the Ukrainian Catholic University, which is such a wonderful symbol of the future of this country. I am extremely proud to be part of this event today that brings together business from Eastern and Western Ukraine. You all have a lot to share and learn from one another, and when you understand each other's challenges and successes, it helps to cement Ukrainian unity. There is nothing more important today than the unity of this country. The last time I spoke at an event similar to this one, last November, was a workshop some of you also attended in Dnipropetrovsk. It was a day I will never forget. My remarks that day in Dnipropetrovsk focused on Ukraine's future in Europe and the extraordinary potential for economic integration and growth under the European Union Association Agreement. I highlighted then how women entrepreneurs were an important engine for the economic growth of Ukraine. And then, that very afternoon, President Yanukovych announced, to everyone's shock, that he was suspending talks for signing the association agreement. By the time I landed in Kyiv that rainy evening, there were a dozen students out on the Maidan holding a European flag and protesting against that decision, demanding that Ukraine stay on the path to European integration. The rest is history, and I don't need to tell you how much Ukraine has changed. A determined and peaceful civil society helped bring about a revolution, not just by bringing the departure of a corrupt president, but by fundamentally changing the way in which Ukrainians think and talk about government and society. This was as much about changing the country as it was about changing the president. I've watched how public discussions have evolved, boldly demanding that rule of law and dignity and respect for human rights become everyday values by which Ukraine is governed. I know the important role that UKU and its students played in this revolution of dignity, as well as the thousands of others who contributed in big and small ways, including some who made the ultimate sacrifice, giving their lives for the future of Ukraine. And yet, despite the revolution and the changes, the message I delivered in November remains even more relevant today. Entrepreneurs are the driving force in any economy, and women have been underrepresented and underutilized in Ukraine's economic growth. And with a government focused on reform and fighting corruption, the environment for small business is getting better every day. With that in mind, I would like to make three main points about why events like today's are so crucial for Ukraine's future and for economic growth. First, in Europe today, almost 60% of the economy is composed of small and medium enterprises. In Poland, the figure is 50%, but in Ukraine, it's only 17%. That tells me there is a sector of the economy with huge untapped potential, one that needs to be developed by people like all of you. For every big manufacturing enterprise, you need dozens of smaller businesses, ranging from those providing parts and services for the big guys to those providing goods and services to the general population. I encourage you all to be ambitious and identify those sectors where your ideas could become real businesses. Let me add that I understand how hard it has been to do business in Ukraine. I know that starting off with a good idea and a business model in Ukraine is not enough. You face obstacles with licenses and permits, with tax inspections, with fire inspections, and more bureaucracy than in most other places. But I am encouraged when I see the efforts by the Yatsenyuk government and business associations to eliminate those barriers. The Maidan was about bringing the rule of law and higher standards to government. And you, as business owners, can help carry forward that vision by pushing your government to reform and simplify and make it easier to build a business. My second issue for this morning is the status of women entrepreneurs. Sometimes people ask whether it is necessary to talk separately about women entrepreneurs. Why not talk to all entrepreneurs? But women tell us there is still a great need in Ukraine to encourage and empower women in business. Officially, women make up 50% of the workforce, but 55% of Ukraine's unemployed people are women. Only 12% of large companies are headed by women, and 15% of medium-sized companies. Women's salaries in Ukraine don't yet match men's. Men earn on average 22% more than women in Ukraine. And that tells me there is still room for figuring out how to develop Ukraine's female entrepreneurial talent. This is a global issue. Many studies, ranging from the World Bank to the World Economic Forum, have demonstrated that investing in women brings a higher yield. It is a fact that women-run small and medium enterprises drive economic growth and create jobs. It's true in the United States. It's true in Ukraine. Helping women in business is a smart policy for economic growth. Lastly, about Ukraine's economic future. When I was in Dnipropetrovsk last November, I was trying to explain the benefits of the association agreement with the European Union. Today, I don't need to tell you here in Lviv, living just a few kilometers from Poland, how useful it is to have a free trade agreement with the EU. But there are still many small and large businesses in the East that don't have that proximity, that don't fully understand the benefits. Their trade ties have traditionally been with your other big neighbor, Russia. And for some businesses, it seems like an either-or situation, either the EU or Russia. Russia, Moscow, has played on those fears and has tried to suggest that people sitting in Moscow should determine Ukraine's economic choices. But it's not a choice of one or the other. Ukraine can have both and should work towards both. Ukraine's geography is not going to change. It will always be a bridge between Russia and Europe, and that should be a tremendous advantage over the long term for everyone. At this historic moment, 2 days before the most important election in Ukraine's history, I urge you to have a productive discussion and to develop ideas and energy and build networks to solidify Ukraine's future. Slava Ukraini!